this month's episode of The Breeze. Girls, welcome back, and it's good to see you. A couple of episodes ago, we talked about the cancel culture, and that was kind of alarming in some respects, but it was an interesting discussion about the way society is today. And I was thinking about the other day, I had a really good day. Good activities, good friends, a sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. I was really happy, and then I had a couple of cocktails and I got even happier. But it got me into thinking. Somebody once asked me and said, what's your concept? What's your idea of ideal happiness? And I don't think it was just that day. I think it's something more than that. What do you think, Tina?
I think happiness is a state of being, a state of life. There are different varying degrees of happiness. I see it, if I put it on a graph, kind of as a horizontal thing that can peak, valley, peak, valley, peak, valley.
So you're saying there are moments of happiness.
No, I feel that you have a constant state of happiness, but it may be varying degrees of happiness through life.
But okay, and Margie, what do you think off the top of your head?
I guess I'm thinking that happiness depends on something that makes you happy. I mean, that may be seeing a little kitten, on the ground, or two old people holding hands. They're glimpses of happiness. That it stirs that in us. Mm-hmm. And maybe we wake up on a day and we just feel happy, and that keeps with us the whole day. We can't explain it, but it's just, like you say, a good day.
Well, I want to know the answer to this question. Is it achievable, or does it just happen?
What you
just
described.
Is it something you strive for?
Well, some of the things you were talking about were external. There's, I think, external and internal happiness. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I have to be accountable to myself. If I have to rely on external stimuli for my happiness, then I'm in trouble. If you look around and look at things and situations, it can really bring you down. So you really have to pump yourself up and try to maintain that constant state of happiness. Now, to me, there's pops in that, which would be joyful, like the kitten you're talking about. I was looking at something on one of the shows on social media. They have different videos that you can see, and it was about a dog and a cat. They were friends, and it was just so cute, and I wanted to hug them and be a part of it, but this cat was all on this dog, and this dog would take him, and
so cute brings you joy.
Yeah, that brought me
Especially
joy.
that you can hold an electronic.
Oh no, but being a part of it, kind of that esoteric feeling of seeing something else that's happy and playful.
Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes we think of certain people and we think, that's a happy person. Only because they seem to have a demeanor, or maybe they handle what's not so happy better, but they seem to be in this just happy. And it's like, where does that always come from? There are things that happen that are not good things during the day. How do you preserve that happiness? Maybe it gets you through it better.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, looking at people, you can sort of sense what they're all about and whether they are a basically happy person. But I personally don't think there's anything such as perfect happiness. I mean, life sucks too much at times to be perpetually happy. But if you can have the wherewithal to overcome, if you have the mental faculties and emotional and spiritual faculties to cope, then I think you're going to be in a happy place.
In a better place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In a happy place. How about all these people that say, if I only won the lottery, boy, I'd really be happy.
Again, that's that external thing of not being accepting of what they have currently. Mm-hmm. When they say, you need to count your blessings as to what you have and not what you don't have, and make the best of it. Because if you're always reaching for something else, then how can you really maintain a level of happiness?
Well, that's an interesting point. If you're never satisfied with what you have,
right.
then you'll never be content or happy to any extent, it seems to me.
And that's maybe why some people rely on drugs and alcohol and bad company, because it kind of
You said
dulls
bad
that.
company?
What did,
Did you said bad company?
bad for them.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
yeah, bad
Or
choices.
bad.
Bad choices. Because they can't have happiness for some reason, and they must know that. They got to feel good somehow, and maybe it's not being in contact with reality.
Well, I think that have a point there. Some people don't like their reality at all. You know, they have to work, and he doesn't. He's got money, I don't. You know, he's got a good-looking girlfriend, I can't make it with girls. So on and so forth, you know. Where do you think is the threshold? In other words, if you're striving for something and you get to a certain point, whether it's a career or whether it's education or whatever it is, that you have longed for and longed to do, when you get there, are you happy, or are you say, this is pretty anticlimactic? Remember Peggy Lee, is that all there is?
Yeah. That's before my time.
Yeah, right.
But I think what you're alluding to is the journey versus the end result. Mm-hmm. And a goal setting, a purposeful point that you want, I think is great. But I think what I'm trying to force myself to do is enjoy the journey. Take the moment that you're in and appreciate it and look at it. I didn't really do that, I think, as a young adult.
You did.
I don't think I did. And because looking back, I think I would have made different decisions had I done that. People in my life, people that I dated, perhaps, I might have done things differently. First husband, some things that I did. Probably he deserved it, but...
They all do eventually, right?
But I see it as something that you need to continually have goals, but also enjoy the journey and look forward to the next journey.
And what about you, Marge? Do you think, what about her concept of the journey, the effort, the ambition, or whatever you want to call it, the process, is what you should be enjoying?
We should be. That's the thing. But if we get a tripper 1/4 of the way down the road, we need to get over that and go forward if we're going to ultimately find what that happiness is. I think a lot of people give up. And a lot of people also take for granted that a man with a beautiful girl in his arm, or a new car, or popularity, they may be the non-happiest people in the world.
Right.
And they're
Yeah,
just trying
that's
to
true.
fill that hole.
It's
with
a
something.
facade,
It is, yeah.
It's something that they're showing the public, but behind the scenes, as they always say, behind closed doors, you don't know what the truth is.
Well, and you hear about people who just don't want to live anymore. And people say, oh my goodness, he had everything.
Yes.
And
Yes. When he
no
really
one
had
knows.
nothing because...
he
yeah.
had no quiet spirit within him.
Yeah. So can we agree on one thing, and that is
Maybe.
things are not indicative of perfect happiness or any happiness? Just having things?
So you're acquiring things is what you're talking about. The
I'm talking about
acquisition of-
things that you have.
Yeah. I can agree to that.
Okay.
It is not indicative of happiness necessarily.
All right.
It's not a soul-filled happiness. I think it's more of a convenience happiness. Or, gee, I'm sure glad I got that. Or, I love using this. Or, finally, I met my goal and I did that.
Yeah, and what are the elements? I mean, faith, maybe, no matter what that may be. Is that an element of perfect happiness? What do you need to, in effect, reach that certain stage, that threshold, where you say, okay, life's pretty darn good for me?
I think you have to, first of all, know who you are. Some
Okay.
people haven't really discovered who they are, haven't taken the time, and they're always relying on external definition, whether it be their job, their family, or whatever, and they really haven't paid attention to themselves.
Well, how do you find out who the hell you are?
I don't know.
You make it sound easy, Tina. Not really, but I mean, you know what I mean.
I think through trial and tribulation is how you find out.
Okay.
You know,
So-
there was a time when my husband was originally ill years ago earlier in our marriage, that people questioned, because I was not a part of an organized religion, that I was a spiritual person. But they found out later through that whole trial that I was, and told me they apologized for their assumptions.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Never had that happen. Well, Margie, what do you view you as essential, maybe to your happiness or to more general happiness?
Well, I think for me, there's also something called joy. And joy doesn't depend on anything like happiness sometimes does. I think it's something within us, in our soul, that just kind of says everything's okay.
Yeah.
There. Doesn't mean that someone cannot be unhappy on the outside. But a lot of times it takes things or people or achievements to give us a sense of happiness.
Well, true enough, and in my case, affirmation. In other words, little pat on the head. Doug, good job, My wife will say, you always want affirmation. Well, yeah. Maybe that's part of what makes me happy.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
support. You
but
need that support.
In reality, you ought to know when you've done something that's worthwhile or kind, a random act of kindness, if you will. And, one of the best things you can do is be charitable or giving or kind and not take credit for it.
Yeah, well, that's true.
In my
too.
view.
Yeah, yeah.
You still can feel good about it.
Well, yeah, you feel good
you
about
feel
it.
good about it. But appreciation, I think, is what you're alluding to as well.
Well, it's nice to be appreciated.
You like to be appreciated because it's a part of, again, that self-worth that you have. If you feel as a person you're not appreciated, how can you really be happy?
Well, unless you know you, and you know you very well, Tina.
But it's taken time to get there.
I think it does. And
Yeah.
sometimes we have to get over the fact that we're not always going to be acknowledged and that something in us. So that's when our self-esteem comes in and says, I'm proud of myself for achieving this.
Right.
There you go.
So what if nobody notices?
Yeah.
And I think that builds a humility in us too, that it's not we're always going to be given the plaque that says good job, good game.
Right,
And of course that's kind of a concern today. The rewards have to be very tangible. But as we grow up, as we keep growing up, I think it becomes less important to get the pat on the back, because if we know ourselves better and know that we have accomplished, we have contributed, we can be happy for ourselves.
Well, okay, it's well said. Well, we went out on the streets, talked to some Sun City residents, and we queried them about what their ideas were in this regard and got some very interesting answers. Let's take a look. Well, Cindy, we've been talking about various topics, but what's your idea of perfect happiness?
I think for me, perfect happiness, when I am perfectly happy, is when I have 2 children. One lives in California, one lives in Texas. And my husband and I just moved here a year ago. We absolutely love it here. And I think perfect happiness for me is when we're all 4 together. And I love my children, and I miss them.
Well, that's a great answer. Thanks so much.
You're very welcome.
Well, George, good to see you. And what's your idea of perfect happiness?
Perfect happiness is when you can do something that you feel good about, and most often that's when you help somebody else.
That's a great answer. And have you found it here at Sun City?
I think I have, yeah. I did stained glass, and you had to take some courses so that you wouldn't hurt yourself with all the glass and knives and stuff. And, the teachers were really good, and it really helped me enjoy creating those things myself. Then I came to Sun City TV, and I help other people learn how to run cameras or do shows and stuff. So I think it's rewarding to help people.
It's a process.
And I also worked with Second Helpings, and the most rewarding thing about that is when you unload the truck and you see these line of people that are needing food and you're bringing them food.
Deborah, what's your idea of perfect happiness?
Well, I have to say I'm living it right now here in Sun City.
Okay, and why is that?
I think because I never have before lived in a community where there are so many like-minded people of good nature and good morals. And I love the way the manicured lawns are always tidy and clear and clean. And it's just a wonderful place.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, what's not to like about here? The only thing, there's a lot of gray hair here, but, you know, you have to get over that.
Well, you sure did.
That's right, I did.
Perfect happiness changes as life changes. When I was younger, perfect happiness was more self-centered. Then when I had a family, it broadened out. Their happiness was my happiness. And now, I just celebrated my 85th birthday. Between my wife and I, we have 15 grandchildren and 2 great-grandchildren. So happiness is seeing them happy.
Fantastic. Thanks, Hank.
You're welcome.
Well, Ray, what's your idea of perfect happiness?
Well, I don't believe anything is perfect. I do believe that there is a degree of perfection, but nothing is perfect. And my children are closest to it.
JJ, what's your idea of perfect happiness?
Well, that's a toughie. I probably would relate it to my tennis match. I would love to hit another ace in my lifetime before I hang up the tennis rackets. I suspect that that's not going to ever happen.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking time.
Well, Bruce, tell me, what's your idea of perfect happiness?
Not really sure in a way if there is perfect happiness, but I know as I'm getting older, I know I find happiness in things that I used to take for granted. And as I realize how blessed I am, it just kind of really helps me show what happiness is.
Perfect. Thanks so much for your time.
Sure. You're welcome.
Okay, quiet on the side. All right, Ed, say your name if you remember it.
Sam, you made my pants too long.
Well, Ed, good to see you. What's your idea of perfect happiness?
Living in Sun City. I ain't gonna miss it.
Well, we're going to miss you, and you've been a stalwart all these years, and God bless you.
Well, I thank you. It's been a pleasure, Doug, working with you and the whole TV crew, and I've really enjoyed it.
Excellent. Godspeed.
Good, thank you.
Okay, we're back now, and let me ask you this question. When you got to Sun City, we had expectations of what would make us happy. We had a vision of retirement that we thought might make us happy. And you see people walking around with kind of a sad look on their face. Their expectations maybe haven't been met, or maybe they're suffering in some way. But what is your threshold, if I may ask, before you get through with striving for happiness or appreciating who you are, and leads to anxiety, stress, anger, whatever? Is there a crossing point?
I think when you start being curt with people, when your attitude changes, and externally, it's like you have to have a moment to regress and say, oh, that wasn't nice, or that wasn't good. I think that's the point when you recognize that a change needs to be made.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, I think so too. I mean, you certainly can find some people who don't seem to be happy about anything, and they don't appreciate what they have. That's what, it's kind of irritating sometimes. All right, I'll give you that you can't have perfect happiness, but when it's pretty darn good, appreciate it.
Well, that's right. And yeah. Because we might meet somebody here in Pinckney Hall today, and they just really look slumped over and sad, and and what do? Can we put a little bit of happiness into their life?
I
If we
would
just say,
smile.
good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Or-
Yeah.
Are you okay?
Well, I think that there should be more of that going around.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Going around. Exactly.
And don't give up just because they're you know, you say good morning and they don't say anything back.
Well, that's right too.
Yeah,
And don't call them an old codger.
There's seasoned citizens. There are no old codgers.
There was a saying that says, treat everybody you meet as though they're having the worst day of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that little bit of an upper
Yeah.
is enough to redirect.
All right. Well, I've always felt that even from a very young age that there's always an opportunity every single day to do a small act of kindness. All right? And you'll affect somebody. Now, not right then, but maybe they'll think about it later. You know what I mean?
True.
Yeah, you're right.
There was a time in junior high school
Oh, gee.
No.
where one
Sound like the Golden Girls
We call
when
it
Grandma
junior high
always
school.
goes back.
where this nerdball kid that I knew, and I knew nerds and athletes and greasers. You know, I got around. But anyway, he got
Like you do now.
right. So anyway, he got beat up, right, by some pretty bad kids at the time. They probably are presidents of companies now. But I took him back into school and I helped him as best I could to clean up. You know, tried to stem the bleeding, as they say. And then, some 50 years later, I went to my 50th high school reunion, and he was there. He says, I want to tell you something. I said, whoa, what could this possibly be? And he recounted that incident
Wow.
that he had remembered for 50 years, and that it was an act of kindness to him that he never forgot.
Oh,
And he said, I just want to thank you.
And that probably, impacted his life and how
Well,
he dealt with other people.
I hope so in a positive way, because one of the aspects I find in building happiness or a happy state for myself is paying it forward. And that's what he was doing. He put me on top of the world
Yeah.
just for that
Oh,
simple
yes.
acknowledgement. And,
and you want to do more of it then, right?
well, I don't want to clean you up if you're beat up.
But I mean, you think about a gesture, how important that
Yeah.
can be. I mean, that was
Well-
more than just a kindly gesture.
Gesture.
But yeah, doesn't it kind of encourage you to say, wow,
Well, it verifies what we would all like to believe, that your actions count.
Well, right now, a please and thank you, especially in light of a lot of the service industries having shortages and staffing issues, a please and thank you goes a long way.
yes, that's true, yeah.
Yeah, that would be on the flip side of what I just said, is if you were to do something and feel like whatever I do just doesn't count. Just doesn't count. And then that leads to, obviously, probably depression and a lot of other things.
Or do it anyway.
Resentment, stress, whatever.
It may take 50 years before you
Well,
know, but
let's hope
imagine-
not. I don't think the next act, I'm going to wait around 50. But in any event, any other thoughts about this? I tell you, I find myself musing about this all the time.
I think that if something comes to mind, like maybe a phone call to someone you haven't spoken to in a while, that brings me joy, because normally I call this guy I had met years ago when I first moved here, and he took my aunt and I over to Defusky, and I ran across his number looking for someone else's number. Well, I called it. And he's moved to Atlanta. He's been gone 8 years. But he was so happy to hear from me. He says, well, I'm so glad you called. And he remembered me. And I said, well, you were really kind. And you took us for a private tour to Defusky, and really appreciated it. So I said, if you're ever this way, give me a call. And I gave him my number and sent him a picture. He sent me a picture.
Yeah, I think reconnecting,
Yeah.
that sort of thing, it brings joy, if not happiness.
Yeah.
It does.
Part of joy, yeah.
And how about you, Margie? Any final thoughts? We're kind of winding down.
Oh, gosh. Well, I think we have to just keep the happiness quotient in front of us, but we also can have contentment without being at that high level of happiness, and I think that's important too.
Well-
That's the state of being happy and satisfied with what you have, who you are, and where you are.
Well, that's a pretty good
So it
summary.
doesn't have to really bubble over all the time.
Okay.
Okay,
You're
so
willing to accept a few down moments for an overall state of
I could
happiness?
probably over for a while.
Well, ladies, thank you so much. I mean, this was a great conversation. Next month, we'll have another exciting topic on the breeze and hopefully interesting to everyone. Give us your feedback if you can, and join us again next month when we again shoot the breeze.